So remember, when we multiplied integers, we said positive times positive is positive. So here we're going to say positive divided by positive is going to give us a positive answer, right? So remember, when we're multiplying, positive times positive is positive. Here we're saying positive divided by positive also gives us a positive, right? The next rule is, what if we have a positive divided by some negative number? So the signs are different. Positive divided by negative, that is going to give us a negative answer, right? So just like in multiplication, positive times negative gives us negative. Here, positive divided by negative gives us negative. The reverse is also true. If it's negative divided by positive, we still get a negative answer, right? So these two kind of go together, sort of, if you want to think of it this way. These two kind of go together because basically, if whatever you're dividing, if the signs are different, either positive divided by negative or negative divided by positive, if the signs are different, we always get a negative number. That's the same exact way it works for multiplication. All right, and then finally, we had the rule, what if it's a negative number divided by another negative number? Remember, when we multiplied, we said that turned into a positive. Guess what? For division, it also turns into a positive. All right, so these are the rules associated with division of integers. I know it looks very complicated, but you know, you see them written like this and it's like, oh my gosh, so complicated. But really just think about it in terms of multiplication. If they're both positive, if the signs are the same, then we get a positive number, essentially. If the signs are the same, we get a positive number. If the signs are different, we get negative numbers. That's really it. That's all it is if you boil it down in terms of words. Now, the thing I want to talk about next is, why does it work out that we use the same rules for division as multiplication? Let's talk about why that is the case. First of all, let's talk about our first problem to get there. 12 divided by 4. Now, you can write division problems with a division symbol like this, but when we get farther into math, we're not going to write our problems with a division symbol like this too much. Usually, instead of writing it like this, we'll write it as a fraction, 12 divided by 4. That's because when we get farther into algebra, this division symbol, it gets cumbersome to write it like that. And I don't want to get into why right now. We're going to generally write it as something divided by something written as a fraction, because when we have letters running around, variables, this way is going to make it much easier. All right, now we know the answer to this, it's 3, right? But every division here can be written as multiplication. What if we write this as 12 over 1 multiplied by 1/4? Now, make sure that this is the same thing. Remember, how do we multiply fractions? 12 times 1 is 12. 1 times 4 is 4. So this way of writing as a multiplication is exactly the same thing as this. When we multiply this, we get this. And then we know that 12 over 1 is just 12, and then times 1/4. Right? So what I'm trying to get you to see here is, when you write a division problem in terms of a fraction like this, you can always write it in terms of a multiplication. Right? Just kind of look at these two forms of writing this thing. These are the same exact thing. This is a division, and then here we have, of course, there's kind of division going on in the fraction here, but we turn it into a multiplication. Because if I take 12 and divide by 4, I'm going to get 3. And I might as well go ahead and write the answer down. Positive divided by positive is going to give me a positive 3, right? But if I take 12 and multiply by 1/4, if you think about that for a minute, that's also going to give us 3. Because if I multiply this out, it'll be 12 on top and 4 on the bottom, and it'll give me the same thing. That's going to be true of every division problem that you have. Whether it's a negative divided by positive or whatever the signs are, all division can be written as multiplication of a fraction, right? So because it can always be written as multiplication, the same rules of multiplication apply, because, as I said in the beginning, division really is multiplication, or can be thought of as multiplication of a fraction like this. So let's get a little more practice with this concept. Let's play around with this 12 divided by 4 for another problem. Let's say we had, instead of that, negative 12 divided by 4. So here it's negative divided by positive, and we already said that if the signs are different, in this case negative divided by positive, we're going to get a negative number. And you know that the answer is 3, and so we know the answer here is going to be negative 3, because it's just the signs are different, so we have a negative answer. And of course we do that division and we get a 3 there, so the answer is negative 3. And then we'll take a look at the last one here, negative 12 divided by negative 4. Here we have 2 negatives. And so again, if the signs are the same, negative divided by negative, we get a positive. And so this is going to get a positive here, 3. Now let's explore just for a second before we go on how these would work out in terms of multiplication. So here, if we had negative 12 divided by 4, we could just write that as negative 12 multiplied by 1/4. Make sure you agree that these are the same thing, because if this negative 12 really is over 1, and then negative 12 times 1 is this, and then the invisible 1 times 4 is 4. So writing it as multiplication is totally fine. And here we have a negative times a positive. Remember, a negative times a positive is just a negative number, so we get a negative. Let's take a look at this one. We could write this, negative 12 divided by negative 4. We could write that as negative 12 multiplied by negative 1/4. Make sure you agree with this, because this negative 12 is really over an invisible 1. So if we multiply these fractions, negative 12 times the positive 1 here will give us negative 12, and then the invisible 1, this sign can go down to the 4, times the negative 4 can give us this. So this negative sign, when it's in front of a fraction, I'm writing it as the fraction is negative 1/4, but really this sign can float up or down. So if I float it down to the denominator, then negative 12 times the 1 gives us this. The invisible 1 down here times negative 4 gives us this. So you see, I'm writing it as a multiplication. Negative times negative again gives us positive. So we're not going to do that for every problem. We're just going to use the rules. But I'm just trying to show you in the beginning, a lot of students say, well, why are the rules the same? Division is different than multiplication. Actually, division is the same thing as multiplication. It is the same thing. So that's why the rules are the same. So let's go and conquer our next problem. Let's say we have 14, and we're going to divide that by negative 2. Now, sometimes I'm going to write it with a division symbol just to kind of give you a little practice. Sometimes I won't. But in all cases, I want you to write it as a fraction, 14 divided by negative 2, because you're going to have to get used to this when we get into higher level math. Now, what is 14 divided by 2? It is 7, and we have positive divided by negative, different signs, so the answer has to be negative, negative 7. Going forward, we're not going to reference those rules over there. We've learned them already for multiplication. There's no reason to reference that table. We've already learned the rules. We're just going to apply them to division. What about negative 25, and we'll divide that by 5? Well, again, here the signs are different, so the answer has to be negative. 25 divided by 5 is 5, so the answer is negative 5. And you see the problems go very, very fast once we kind of get in the groove here. What is 16 divided by 2? Well, we're going to write this as 16 over 2, and it's positive divided by positive, so we get positive 8. 16 divided by 2 is 8. Right? What about negative 30? We'll divide that by negative 6. We don't generally want to leave it like that. Let's write it as negative 30 divided by, and on the bottom is negative 6. So we have the same sign, positive divided by positive, positive. 30 divided by 6 is 5, so the answer is actually a positive 5. You can think of these signs as undoing each other. I don't like cheese means I really like cheese, right? And so negative divided by negative is positive, just like it is for multiplication. All right, we're over halfway done. Let's take a look at negative 9 divided by 3. Well, what is 9 divided by 3? That's just 3, and because the signs are different, negative divided by positive, the answer is going to be negative 3. All right, what about 42 divided by negative 7? We don't really want to leave it like that. Write it as 42 divided by negative 7. And it's negative divided by positive, positive divided by negative, so the answer has to be negative. 42 divided by 7 is 6, and so the answer is negative 6. All right, what about negative 10 divided by negative 2? Negative 10 divided by negative 2. So we have positive divided by positive. It's a positive answer. 10 divided by 2 is 5. So it's actually a positive 5. All right, only 2 more questions. What about 18 divided by negative 3? We want to write it as a fraction, 18 over negative 3. We have different signs here, so the answer has to be negative. 18 divided by 3 is 6. So we get an answer of negative 6. And here's our last problem. What about negative 24 divided by negative 12? Well, we know that 24 divided by 12 is actually 2, and negative divided by negative is a positive, so the answer is actually positive 2. So here we have conquered the idea of division of integers, right? We said that we already know the rules, right? The rules that we learn are the same rules we learned for multiplication. Basically, if the signs of what you're dividing are the same, either both positive or both negative, then the answer is going to be positive. But if the signs are different, then the answer is always going to be negative. That's the quick and dirty way to remember it. And it's the same rules whether we're multiplying or dividing. And the reason the rules are the same is because division is multiplication. Because any division problem I give you, even if there's a negative sign involved, I can write it as a multiplication of some fraction, because we now know how fractions work. And so because we can always write it in terms of multiplication, the rules have to be the same. Let's take a look and apply that to the following. Negative 18, let's divide that by 9. Now generally we're not going to be using this division symbol very much anymore, but we're kind of getting the training wheels, taking it off. So we want to start writing these as division with a fraction bar. Negative 18 divided by 9. The signs are different. This is a negative and a positive here. So the answer is going to be negative. And then 18 divided by 9 is 2, right? So the answer is negative 2. All right, next problem. See how simple that is? Signs are different, the answer is negative. Take a look at this. What about 24? We'll divide that by negative 2. Same story, we want to write it as a division with a fraction bar, so we'll write that negative 2 on the bottom like this. The signs are different. Positive divided by negative, so it's a negative. 24 divided by 2 is 12, because 12 times 2 is 24, and so again the answer is negative. So you see the signs are different whether it's positive divided by negative or negative divided by positive. The answer just turns out to be a negative number. And then you just perform the division as you normally do and you're done. All right, let's take a look at negative 35 and we'll divide it by 7. Again, the signs are different. Negative divided by positive, so it's negative. 35 divided by 7 is 5. So the actual answer is negative 5. All right, let's take a look at negative 27, and we will divide that by negative 9. So again, we want to write it as a fraction. Negative 27 divided by this, which is negative 9. Here we have the same signs. Positive divided by positive, I'm sorry, negative divided by negative. So the answer is a positive. 27 divided by 9 is 3, and it's positive because the signs are the same here. So the answer is positive 3. All right, next problem, negative 33. We'll divide that by negative 11, and we'll write that as a fraction. Negative 33 divided by negative 11, and the signs are the same. So we get a positive answer. Negative divided by negative is positive. The answer is 3 because 33 divided by 11 is 3. It's positive because of what we just said before. All right, so we are halfway done with this lesson. Pretty fast. We're just getting practice. It's very important that you kind of don't have to think about this too hard, because as we solve more complex problems, we'll have to do it pretty rapidly. Negative 32 divided by 8. Negative divided by positive is a negative. 32 divided by 8 is 4, because 8 times 4 is 32. So we get an answer of negative 4. All right, what about 36 divided by negative 6? Let's write this as a fraction. 36 divided by negative 6. The signs are different, so it has to be a negative sign. 36 divided by 6 is 6, so the final answer is actually negative 6. All right, home stretch. This is problem number 8. Take a look at negative 48, and we'll divide that by negative 4. Again, write it as a fraction, which is negative 48, divided by negative 4. So here we have negative divided by negative, same sign, so the answer is positive. 48 divided by 4 is 12, so the answer is just positive 12. All right, let's take a look at the last two problems. What about 72? And we'll divide that by negative 9. So positive divided by negative, that has to be a negative. The signs are different. And 72 divided by 9 is 8, because 8 times 9 is 72. And so the answer really is negative 8. And then our final question, what about negative 56 divided by negative 8? So let's write this as a fraction. Negative 56 divided by negative 8. We have the same signs. Negative divided by negative is positive. 56 divided by 8 is 7, because 8 times 7 is 56, and so the answer is positive 7. So just getting a little more practice, you see how fast this goes. I know that when you're first learning this for the first time, you're not going to be quite as fast as I am. That's okay. I don't care about speed. I don't care about getting done fast. I just care about you eventually starting to remember these things without studying a list of rules. You know, a lot of students will just study a list of rules and go, which case am I in? Oh, okay, it's got to be that one. But eventually, just like talking, when you learn how to speak as a child or read, it's very hard at first. And then after a while, you can read without a big problem. And then you can use a computer and type without too much of a problem. And you can run and you can do surfboarding and all kinds of things that are hard at first. With this, it might seem hard at first, but as you do more of them, you'll just start remembering what to do. Let's take a look at negative 28 and let's divide that by 2. So here we can write this, of course, always as a fraction. We want to generally write it like this, negative 28 divided by 2. Now, you may not remember what 28 divided by 2 is, so you're going to have to go off to the side and take 28 and divide it by 2. 2 times 1 is 2, and then we subtract for a 0, drag the next digit down, and 2 times what is 8? 2 times 4 is 8, remainder 0. So after all of that, we figured out that 28 divided by 2 is actually 14. But because it's a negative divided by a positive, the answer is negative 14. Because the signs are different. And when the signs are different, the answer becomes negative. So that's how we're going to do all of these. There's going to be some side work. And for some of the problems, I'll do that side work. But eventually, I'll stop it because I'm going to assume that you know how to divide numbers. Let's take a look at 42. And let's divide it by negative 3. We're going to write that as 42 fraction bar divided by negative 3. Now again, you may not remember what 42 divided by 3 is. So just go over here and say 3 times 1 is 3. The remainder here is a 1. Then we drag down the 2. And 3 times what is 12? 3 times 4 is 12. And the remainder is 0. So we stop. We got an answer of 14. But because it was positive divided by negative, it's a negative 14 because these signs are different. So the answer we actually get there is negative 14. All right, let's take a look at negative 45, and we'll divide that by negative 3. So we have to go off and figure out what 45 divided by 3 is. So let's go down here. 45, let's divide that by 3. 3 times 1 is 3, difference of 1. Drag down the 5. 3 times what is 15? 3 times 5 is 15. Subtract for a remainder of 0. And so what we get is an answer of 15. But because it's negative divided by negative, that's actually a positive. So it's actually a positive 15 in this case. All right, what about negative 32? Let's divide that by 2. So negative 32 divided by 2. This is one I happen to remember. 32 divided by 2 is 16. And so I'm going to put 16 down. And because it's negative divided by positive, the answer is a negative 16 because the signs are different. Now, I remember that 32 divided by 2 is 16 because I remember also that 30 divided by 2 is 15. So I happen to remember that 32 divided by 2 is 16. If you don't remember it, just go over here and work it out. That's the way it goes. All right, what about negative 72? And we're going to divide that by negative 6. So we have negative divided by negative is positive. And I happen to know that 6 times 12 is 72. So I know that 72 divided by 6 is 12 because 12 times 6 is 72. And the answer is positive because negative divided by negative is positive. So when I happen to remember, I will go ahead and use the knowledge I have and not work it off to the side. All right, what about something a little weird? What about negative 63? And let's divide by 3. I don't remember what 63 divided by 3 is, so I'll just go here and say 63 divided by 3. 3 times 2 is 6, subtract 0. Then I have a 3. 3 times 1 is 3, remainder 0. So actually the answer was 21. But because it was negative divided by positive, it's actually negative 21 because the signs are different. All right. Next problem. Let's take a look at 64. Negative 64, divide by negative 4. So same thing, let's write it as a fraction, negative 64 divided by negative 4. Maybe you don't remember what 64 divided by 4 is, so go over here, 64 divided by 4. It goes one time, 4 times 1 is 4, subtract is 2, then this 4 comes down, 4 times what is 24, 4 times 6 is 24, remainder of 0. So the answer we get is 16, and negative divided by negative is positive. So the answer is positive 16. All right, what about 130 divided by negative 10? Now this one's easy because I know when I divide by 10, I move the decimal of whatever I'm dividing one spot to the left. That's the fastest way to do it. So it's going to be 13. And positive divided by negative is negative, so that's negative 13. If you don't remember that, dividing by 10, moving the decimal thing, then just divide it off, long division like we've been doing, and you'll find out the answer is negative 13. All right, only 2 more problems. Let's take a look at 57. We'll divide that by -3. Now, I don't remember what 57 divided by 3 is, so I'll just do 57 divided by 3. This goes one time. 1 times 3 is 3. This is a 2. 7 comes down. 9 times, or 3 times what is 27? 9. That's 27. Remainder 0. So it goes 19 times, but because it's different signs, positive divided by negative, we actually get -19 for our answer. Here is our final question, -74 divided by -2. Again, I don't really remember what this is, so 74 divided by 2. 2 times 3 is 6. That's as close as I can get. And then I drag this 4 down, and 2 times what is 14? 7 is 14. Remainder 0. The answer we got was 37. And because it was negative divided by negative, same signs, it's positive 37. And that's the final answer. So you see, for all of these problems, the rules are the same. The rules of what sign the answer should be is the same. It's just that when the numbers are bigger, we have to go off to the side and crank through the division to get the answer. Sometimes when we're dividing by 10 or something that we just happen to remember, we don't need to do the side work. Sometimes we have to do the side work. And if you're allowed to use a calculator, then you can use that if it's allowed for you as well. But in any case, the focus of this lesson isn't to divide long division. The point of this lesson is to know the sign of the answer when you're dividing negative, divide by negative, negative divided by positive, and so on. Because later on, when we're solving equations, which we're going to be doing very soon, and moving things around in order to solve equations, we're going to be multiplying, dividing by negatives all the time. So this needs to really be second nature. So go through this as many times as you need to really get comfortable with dividing integers. Follow me on to the next lesson. We'll continue building your skills. Learn anything at mathandscience.com.